Hello, and welcome back to more Films That Are Constant Critique, where we take a look at films, some good, some bad, and some downright awful. I'm Bongo Baikov, joined by our host Maverick, Dren, Zaria. And this week, as you may have guessed from our two previous episodes, we are taking a look at the 2007 film Spider-Man 3.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye. Okay, so Spider-Man 3 was released in May of 2007. So this movie is almost of voting age now. It's
Oh,
kind
wow.
of weird to think. It cost about $300 million, and at the time it was the most expensive movie ever made.
Wait, really? So, how many times in this podcast now have we done the most expensive film ever made? Because wasn't Superman the most expensive film when it came out?
Yeah, the Superman the movie, yeah, it was. And another movie on this podcast ended up beating this one the same year. Might have even been the same month, because the Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End ended up becoming the most expensive movie. Not long after.
It was a busy year.
So this movie made almost $900 million. And it was still not the highest grossing movie of the year, even though it made that much. It was third behind.
What was second?
Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which I'm like,
oh, okay, that makes sense.
Really? That one?
It's still, though, it's Harry Potter. I mean, of course it's going to be one of the highest grossing.
But, like, that's not one of the better Harry Potter movies or books, in my opinion. And Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End was number one, because that movie made a... It's insane how much the second and third Pirates movies made at the box office, because Dead Man's Chest made like $1 billion. This Spider-Man 3 was directed by Sam Raimi. And with 7 movies, he is our most featured director on the podcast.
And if I get my way, we'll probably add another 3 or 4 at some point.
Probably, yep. Drag Me to Hell. We'll do a Drag Me to Hell podcast, or
Sure.
What else is he do? Oh, I'm not doing The Quick and the Dead. I'll just say that.
That's fine. We could do the new Doctor Strange movie he did.
Multiverse of Madness. Yeah, that would be an interesting one to do.
And then we gotta start watching all the stuff he produced. Make him our most recurring producer. Who is our most recurring producer?
Oh, probably George Lucas or Kathleen Kennedy. Somebody like that.
That would make sense. I was about to say maybe De Laurentiis, but
Dino De Laurentiis, yeah, maybe. But getting back to Spider-Man 3, it was written by Sam Raimi, Ivan Raimi, who also helped write Darkman and Army of Darkness, and Alvin Sargent, who he wrote the second one. So.
Okay.
And the cast, a lot of returning ones, including Tobey Maguire, James Franco, Kirsten Dunst, J.K. Simmons. Stan Lee has a cameo.
Dafoe.
Yeah, Dafoe shows up in one scene. Oh, and Cliff Robertson, he's there as well. Rosemary Harris. We have a few new cast members, like Thomas Hayden Church, who plays Mr. Sandman. Topher. Let me look again.
Oh, he was in Tombstone.
Tombstone. He's in Tombstone, really? He's in George of the Jungle.
Huh.
Oh god, he was in the that Hellboy remake that came out a few years ago. I forgot about that. He's in John Carter, apparently. That was a huge box office success right there.
Oh, yeah. He was also in the Spider-Man 3 video game. Oh, he voiced Killer Moth in an episode of Teen Titans.
Oh, really? Huh. So he's played both a Batman villain and a Spider-Man villain. Interesting.
Yeah.
When are we going to get Killer Moth in a movie?
Maybe that'll be Batman 2. Or The Batman 2, sorry.
I thought they were setting up the Joker, though, in the ending of the... Anyway. Or was that a deleted scene?
They did set him up, but there was another deleted scene where he went and talked to the Joker a bit more.
Okay, some of the other new cast members. Topher Grace, who was in that 70s show. And the only other thing I know him for is he made a fan edit of the Star Wars prequels that cut them down to one movie.
Huh.
But it hasn't been released, though, like, anywhere. He, screened it, but... Anyway.
He was apparently in Predators.
Predators, yeah, I forgot about that. I haven't seen that movie in years, though, to be fair. And he played David Duke in Black Klansman. That's the role everybody wants, right? Jesus Christ. Oh, Ron Howard's daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, is in this.
I didn't know that was Ron Howard's daughter.
Yep, Ron Howard's daughter. Yeah. She was in Lady in the Water, Jurassic World, and I believe she directed a few Star Wars TV episodes. Let me look and see which ones, though. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, The Mandalorian.
Looks like she did an episode of, and then one of Boba Fett.
Book of Boba Fett, yep. Of course. James Cromwell, which we've had him before because he was in Deep Impact.
Yep.
And this is another.
I remember seeing him and I was like, he looks so familiar.
He's another, and like Deep Impact, I forgot he was in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was in Babe and Star Trek First Contact.
And The Green Mile, which is where I think I recognized him from.
Okay. Oh, he is in that, huh? And so was Harry Dean Stanton, if I remember right.
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
And Bill Paxton's dad, John Paxton, is in this. He's
really
Harry's butler.
Ah,
the guy that we'll talk about that scene, but
yeah.
Okay, so initial thoughts. I'll let you start on this one.
Okay, so I know that during the first two episodes we sort of talked about our personal histories and connections with these movies, because obviously we watched these growing up, so it was a really nostalgic experience watching these. And I know for a fact that I had watched this one when I was a kid. It's just that I don't really remember when, and I'm pretty sure I only ever saw it like once on TV or something like that.
So you don't have
because all I really remembered
of a connection to this one as you do to the other ones, basically.
Yeah. Because I remembered how the movie ends, but I didn't really remember the rest of it. So the last time I rewatched it would have been a couple years ago during college when these movies were on Netflix, I think. And I remember watching it and being like, yeah, that was pretty bad. And so coming back into it this time, I didn't have, very high hopes for it. And it is a bit of a mess at points, I will say. There are some pretty bad decisions made throughout, but overall, I actually really liked watching this movie. It was a fun experience. It wasn't like a great movie. It's not even really a good movie, but it's a fun one to watch, I think.
It can't rival Morbius, basically, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Or like the first two. Obviously, it's not as good as the first two. I mean, most people would agree with you on that. Did you have anything else?
That was just my opening thoughts for that.
My experience with this movie is a little bit interesting. So, it took a long time for me to finally see this one. And I actually think this is the first movie that I can remember like being hyped for, like when it came out. Like I remember like all the marketing blitz for this, like the hype for this movie, but my parents wouldn't let me watch it because they thought it was like too dark. And I also think they didn't want me acting like Bully Maguire or something. But like I really, really wanted to see it because Venom was in it. He was probably my favorite Spider-Man villain as a kid. You got Black Suit Spider-Man in it, of course. Sandman is in it. It just made me want to watch it even more. I did know most of what happened in it though because I had like a picture book of it as a kid. I had friends who basically just explained the whole plot to me, since I hadn't seen it. And I have a lot of action figures from this movie. Like somewhere around my house, I can probably find like Black Suit Spider-Man action figures of Sandman, Venom.
Yeah.
Like it came out at just the right time for me to get all the toys of it, but not actually see it until later. So I finally saw it when I was in like probably middle school, maybe high school. And I liked it when I first saw it. I didn't realize at the time that so many people hated it. And then I saw reviews of it. I could kind of understand why people didn't like it. That being said, I've never hated this movie. It has problems, but it has good things in it too. The problem is that the standards were set so high with Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, that is one factor in this. Like, it would have been very hard to beat Spider-Man 2.
It's not a good sequel to Spider-Man 2 is the problem, because it's almost impossible to live up to expectations, and this film just did not meet expectations, not even close. I wouldn't call it a completely awful movie, but it has a lot of problems, enough that I can't really give it a pass. I think it's just very frustrating. It should have been a lot better. There's a lot of scenes that are both painful and unintentionally hilarious, but we'll get to that. How I feel about this movie, it's kind of similar to how I feel about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where I can tell that the director's heart just wasn't fully in it, and I think the movie suffers as a result.
Yeah.
And the script is just all over the place, but I don't think it's terrible. I'd say it's mediocre, just, because there are good things about it. It's just that they fuck up too many crucial parts of the story for me to quite give it a pass. So I guess I liked it less than you did in that case. Somebody who probably liked it less than we did is your buddy.
Good old Leonard Maltin.
Yeah, Leonard Maltin. What do you want to guess he gave it?
I'm gonna guess he gave it a 1.5 stars.
Being optimistic, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
2 out of 4. So,
Oh, wow. Okay.
not as good as Batman Forever. You know, he might be right on that one, actually. No, I'm kidding. I think Spider-Man 3 is better than Batman Forever, personally. But, they're both a mess, though. Can we agree on that? That both of those movies are a mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said, all the worst qualities of a manufactured sequel converge here. Slickly made, but often boring and ineffectual, leading up to a climax where, surprise, Spidey cries real tears. Because that's the problem with the movie, is the crying.
I guess.
Special effects can't save an inferior script. So, are you mad at him, or,
I would have given it a little bit higher. I think it's better than Batman Forever, for example.
I'd probably give it like 2.5, because I mean I could sit and watch it. It's just that it's kind of frustrating because there's so many other directions where they could take it. But
yeah.
Oh, there is. Okay, I was going to talk about this. There's a version of this movie called the editor's cut.
I saw that somewhere. I didn't really read what was in that version.
So the editor's cut, it was released for this movie's 10th anniversary. I haven't seen it, but I watched some videos about it. I read stuff about it. It is 2 minutes shorter than the theatrical version.
Okay.
There's deleted scenes added. There's scenes that are cut. There's scenes that are moved around. The music score is different, which is interesting.
Huh.
One change is that the confrontation with Eddie is moved to before the confrontation with Harry.
That's interesting. I'll get back to. I'm gonna make a note of that. I'll get back to that actually.
One change
I
that I
have a
think
point that's actually kind of related to that almost.
one change that I think is pretty funny is that the scene of Peter strutting is placed after he tries killing Harry with a bomb. Which makes that scene a lot more like darkly comedic. You know, it's just like, oh, he just tried to kill his best friend, and then he's
out dancing in the streets.
It's so funny. Just for that, I think the editor's cut might be better, actually. The scene where Peter gets advice from the rent guy is cut, which results in a later scene where he apologizes to his daughter. Some of Willem Dafoe's lines are cut, which is kind of weird.
Huh.
Including the part where he says to attack his heart. There's scenes of Peter being tired after using the black suit to like reinforce the effects the suit is having on him, which they should have left that in.
Yeah.
They should have left that in. That would have helped. The scene where emo Peter shows up and Little Goblin Jr. is slightly different. At the beginning of that scene, the dialogue is slightly different, and emo Peter is laying on a couch. And it's the same couch where he laid Norman's body, by the way, so it's almost like he's mocking Harry.
I think I've actually seen that deleted scene before, now that you mention it.
Yeah. His hair also looks a little less stupid in the version of this scene, so there's that. There's an added scene where Sandman's wife and daughter are in a park. His daughter finds a sand castle and touches it. And they leave the park, and you see the castle turn into Sandman, which that's an interesting scene
Yeah.
right there, but it doesn't really have much to do with the plot, so I can kind of.
It doesn't really add much, but it is at least an interesting bit for his character that he's at least trying to still be with his wife and daughter.
The scene where Peter tries giving the ring back to Aunt May is cut, which that's kind of an important scene. Why would you cut that? Oh, okay, this one makes sense. The scene where the butler tells Harry what happened to his dad is cut.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We'll talk about that a little later. Instead, it's replaced with a scene of Harry crying while looking at a picture of his friends. I guess he just decides to go help Spider-Man because they're his friends.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it sounds like the editor's cut is a little bit better than what we got. I don't think it.
Yeah. I don't think it would have saved it, but.
No. Like, if somebody has, like. Considering the serious issues I have with this movie, this edit probably wouldn't fix the movie, but it does make things slightly better, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so the plot. The plot of this one is that Spider-Man does blackface. Well, kind of. You probably weren't expecting me to say that in this podcast. He gets possessed by some black goo, which makes his suit black.
From outer space. You can't forget it's from outer space.
Yeah, it just landed on Earth for some reason because of him.
Right next to Spider-Man, because that's where it needed to land.
Yeah. The script just said, we need goo to land on Earth, so the goo lands on Earth. But yeah, so the black suit makes him act emo. Meanwhile, he has to deal with relationship drama. Correction. He has to deal with a lot of relationship drama. His best friend is trying to murder him. And there's two villains that were clearly shoehorned into the movie.
Yep.
So, in the last podcast, we established that apparently you're Spider-Man.
Yes. Yeah, we accidentally let that slip.
Does any of this movie ring true to your experience?
I mean, bits and pieces here and there. I have had to blow up a very close friend with his own pumpkin bomb at one point in my life. But I'm sure that's a totally normal problem for everyone else to have. But beyond that, not too much.
Looks like I'm gonna have to be cautious if I ever visit you sometime. Have you ever, like, strut down the street while listening to a James Brown song?
I mean, that's just how I walk into work every day.
Okay. Yeah, let's start off positive with the pros. There's some, so.
I'm actually gonna start it off with the music.
The music's pretty good, yeah. It wasn't Danny Elfman that did the score.
But it was still pretty good.
Christopher Young, who did the score for Hellraiser, did the music for this movie. And yeah, it's pretty good.
One thing that I like is you can notice that once Spider-Man gets his black Spidey suit, whenever they played like the Spider-Man theme, it sounds like darker. Which was just a nice touch that I like, because it sounds like they just moved it into like a minor key. For any people who know music out there. So it was just a cool little touch to see.
Kind of wish the violin lady from the second one was in this. Speaking of,
it was still in there.
Yeah. I think the CGI in this is pretty good for the most part.
Yeah, actually,
especially on Venom and Sandman.
I was about to mention both of those in their own section when we talk about the characters.
But yeah, especially Sandman looks really impressive, like how he
Yeah.
moves around and stuff, and like forms shapes and stuff. Like that. There's
And
that scene
I
of
think
him
especially
after he turns into Sandman. It's just him like.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. Once he first awakens, that CGI is actually pretty good.
Yeah, especially for that
Watching
time.
him rise out of the pit. Yeah.
The CGI came a long way just from that first Spider-Man movie. It's crazy.
And we mentioned this earlier, but this also was the same year that At World's End came out, so just a lot of good CGI this year.
The camera work's pretty good too. There's some memorable shots in this. Maybe some are memorable for the wrong reasons, but like whenever he's black suit Spider-Man, there's some good shots. Like when he first discovers that his suit is black, and it's like that shot where he's hanging upside down, looking in the reflection. That's a really good shot right there.
I like the shot of him in the black suit on top of the church right before he loses the black suit. But it also looks a lot like Batman.
I was just about to say that. I was like, that's such a Batman shot, yeah. Where he's just kind of brooding up on top of the church, Speaking of music, I think MJ's a good singer, despite what the critics in this movie say.
Yeah. I say so too. I like her performances in the jazz club. At the
she
end,
sings 2 songs
especially
in this movie, right?
Yeah, because she has the Broadway musical and then the jazz song at the end.
Yeah, the Marilyn Monroe song. What was it? I'm Through with Love. Yeah, that's what it was. It has one of my favorite Stan Lee cameos.
It's a pretty good one.
Yeah, he Spider-Man just standing on a street. I think it was Times Square.
I think so.
Or something,
yeah.
And there's that sign that says something about Spider-Man to receive key to the city. Stan Lee just walks up to Peter Parker and says,
I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said.
And it's cool that it's Stan Lee talking to a character that he helped create. So
yeah, that's what's kind of fun about all of his cameos.
The guy lived long enough to see a lot of his characters make it to the screen. Yeah, that's nice. It's a nice Stan Lee line too. One person can make a difference.
Yeah.
The action scenes are actually really good in this movie, I'm not gonna lie.
I do really like the Black Spider-Man versus Sandman fight when they're in the sewers, or the subway.
Yeah, that's a really good one, where he drags him across the subway train.
Yeah, he's pressing his face into it, and it's just getting shaved off.
Yeah. Or when he's fighting Sandman, when Sandman's trying to rob a bank car.
Yeah.
That one was pretty good. Any fight scene with Sandman is pretty good, because he's has all these interesting things he can do, with his hands. It's just his entire body, because it's all made of sand, so he's able to do all this weird shit.
Do we want to talk about Sandman a bit?
We could talk about Sandman a bit. The one thing I like is when they introduce Sandman, they play the Metallica song Enter Sandman. Or they should have.
They really should have.
Or they could have played the Rock Sugar song Don't Stop the Sandman.
Stop the Sandman. At the very least, you could have thrown in the Mr. Sandman song.
Yeah. Mr. Sandman.
Sandman.
Oh my goodness. They did in the Halloween too, but on this.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
and some of the other Halloween movies as well, because they like to bring that back. But yeah, Sandman he was interesting because they made him a more sympathetic character.
Yeah, I actually think he was probably, out of the three, he's probably my favorite villain from this movie.
From this movie?
Because of that sort of sympathetic nature.
Yeah, probably. I thought Thomas Hayden Church did a good job acting-wise. Because basically his character, he's like robbing banks and stuff, like, but he's trying to get the money so he can save his daughter.
Help pay for his daughter cancer treatments.
Yeah, so like at one point he says, I'm not a bad guy, I've just had bad luck, which I'm like, and
yeah,
like it's very easy to like sympathize with him. The only thing though, he doesn't have a lot of screen time in this. He gets really overshadowed by the other two villains in this.
That's something I'm going to get into when we talk about cons with the villains, but I will say, I think in terms of how the character also relates to Spider-Man, he's probably my favorite villain in this movie, like, for sure.
I didn't really like the twist, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
Oh, you don't like the twist?
I didn't like that. It was kind of... because it retcons the first movie a bit, and it was just weird because they never mentioned
actually kind of liked it. I think it would have worked better if his was the only storyline, obviously, but I like that it sort of forces Peter to look back at his decisions as Spider-Man and reflect on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Plus, if we would have had more time to build, I think, on that story and with Mr. Sandman, I think the end where Peter says, I forgive you, to him would have been a lot more impactful. But I actually think that was a pretty good idea.
I will say that scene where Peter forgives him is really good. That's a good scene. Yeah. But I just wish, like, because it just feels like it comes out of nowhere. It feels kind of lazy to me, which is a problem with the writing. With the writing in this movie, but there's worse examples than that. Yeah. I will say that.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to get into part of that with my cons, because like my biggest con is, I think, probably going to be your biggest con as well, so...
Who knows? I don't know what my biggest con
we'll see.
Is, but and I like Jameson in this movie.
Jameson is great in this movie.
He gets a lot of funny part, like the part with him and his pills, because he's got like blood pressure problems, and Betty Brant keeps like turning on this like buzzer,
really loud intercom with a buzzer on it
to like remind him, and she's like, "No, not that one. No, not that one.
No, the other one."
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
I also like his scene at the end when he's trying to buy the camera off, like, the 10-year-old girl.
That was pretty funny, yeah.
Who, like, basically robs him. It was great.
Or when Peter and Eddie both ask him for a staff job.
You want a staff job, and you want a staff job. Anybody care about what I want?
I do.
Shut up. Get out.
I thought that was pretty good.
I also do have a few positives to say about Venom as well.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. I think
the CGI when he's is pretty good. Like the suit looks pretty good. I wish he was
the suit looks pretty good, but also
dude though, because Eddie Brock is supposed to be like this really big, imposing dude. He's supposed to be bigger than Flash Thompson, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
Whereas here you have that guy from that 70s show, and it's like, okay, he doesn't really look like Eddie Brock, but I digress.
Yeah, so I think the suit looks good, but I also just think the symbiote itself looks good. Like when it's the black goo sort of moving around, I think that looks pretty good.
It does, yeah.
And of course, it's Venom, so he's just going to look cool no matter what, but... And I think that's where my positives with Venom ends, actually.
I do have another positive with Venom. It made me appreciate the Venom movies more.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, some of the scenes with Eddie Brock are kind of funny, like when Spider-Man, like, when he tries taking Spider-Man's picture when he's in the black suit.
And he breaks the camera. See ya, chump.
See ya, chump. I thought that was pretty funny. There are some good scenes with black suit Spider-Man in this, and I wish they'd explored it more, because that's such it's such an interesting concept, seeing, like, you know, Peter, he's like, he has to be Spider-Man, but he's dealing with, like, his worst impulses coming out. It's almost like, you know, some people have compared it to, like, being, like, addicted to drugs or something like that. And they don't...
And
some of the scenes with that are good, like when he fights Sandman, or...
Yeah.
When he... I like the part
when he's antagonizing Eddie.
He yells at the rent guy.
Give me rent. You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
And it actually is also kind of like Superman 3 a bit.
Yeah, it is. I just rewatched Superman 3, like, around the same time I watched this, actually, and it was kind of funny, some of the similarities, like... And it was just weird, like, seeing this at the time, and, like, oh my god, Spider-Man is, like, swearing in this, and, like, getting angry at everybody. It was kind of strange.
And I don't know whether to put this in the... So I'm going to put it in the positives for now, just because it made me laugh, but not for the reasons that I think it wanted me to
know
laugh.
what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. But
everything with Bully Maguire was just so funny.
I was going to say, this movie has both the best and worst dance scene of all time. Because, okay...
is it weird that I have to ask you which one?
That's a good question. But I was thinking of, like, okay, so he's basically Peter Parker is emo now, because he like
he's not even really, like, he has like an emo haircut, but he's just acting like super edgy the whole time.
And there's this one part, but the scene I was thinking of specifically is where he's, like, strutting down the street like he's Tony Manero. And there's a James Brown song playing. I also love how, like, the women he runs into on the street, they're just not impressed with his antics. They just think he looks like a fucking idiot.
At all.
Like, and I went back and watched this scene so many times after rewatching this movie, just because I find it so fucking funny. Because it's so dumb and just out of place. Like...
and then the other scene,
if you
when
want to
he's
show
in the
Peter
jazz
Parker
club...
getting drunk on power, this is not how you do it. Like... And there's more instances.
Also, I don't know if you remember this, but they referenced it in that Spider-Verse movie.
Oh, dude, I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
They have a clip where he's doing the dance as part of, like, a flashback montage.
I think the characters, like, make a comment on it or something, but I don't remember exactly.
But also with Bully Maguire, the other dance scene where he's in the jazz club.
Oh my god, that's like one of the worst scenes in the movie. It's so bad.
It's awful, but
it's so cringy.
So funny to watch.
That scene I find just so cringy and, like, unintentionally hilarious, because it's the... As people always bring up the part where he's just strutting down the street, but I think the scene in the jazz club, like, where he's dancing and all that shit, I think that's even worse. It's just bad. Like,
it's so bad. I completely forgot about that scene. And so I rewatched it basically as if I had seen it for the first time. When it zoomed in on his mouth and he whispered, "Now dig on this," I lost it.
Oh my god, yeah, his lines in that scene are so bad. There's, like, one part where he, like, says,
"Find us some shade."
And then he says, Now dig on this. Like, what? Why do I remember so many bad lines from this movie?
Because the delivery was amazing.
I swear, if it wasn't for like Bully Maguire memes and stuff, some of the scenes in this movie would probably be like unwatchable. Just
Yeah.
it was so bad. Like just
And
and especially
then
like
when
you
he
look
confronts,
oh my god. Okay.
and then when he confronts Brock earlier about having like the fake Spider-Man pictures.
I do actually like that scene where he's like antagonizing Eddie because what Eddie did. Okay, so earlier in the movie, Jameson said that he wanted a picture of Spider-Man like committing a crime or something. You know, Spider-Man with his hand in a cookie jar, and so Eddie basically faked a picture of Spider-Man like stealing some money. He like photoshopped it. And then Peter finds like the actual picture before it was like doctored. He basically just exposes Eddie like and I just love that confrontation between him and Eddie. He like says,
You want forgiveness? Get religion.
And he's also got the "I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye."
I'm gonna put some
line.
dirt in your eye. Yeah, that one's pretty good.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
And to be fair, Eddie does kind of take Peter's advice later in the movie. Because he goes to a church
okay, that's
and
another
basically...
scene where I don't know if I would have put that under positives or negatives. Because it got such a laugh out of me, but I don't know if it was intentional.
He goes to a church and tries to hire God as a hitman to kill Peter.
Because he's like, praying. Hold on, let me...
It's so
Brock,
stupid.
sir. Edward Brock Jr. I come before you today humbled and humiliated.
Humbled?
To ask you for
Oh,
one
that's
thing.
rich.
I want you to kill Peter Parker. He went to church to pray that God would kill Spider-Man.
Oh, God.
And
And also, another thing, Spider-Man forgives Sandman. Does that mean Spider-Man is a religion?
Is he a religious figure now?
Oh, he's a better religious figure than Superman and Man of Steel. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so satisfying whenever Eddie is getting antagonized, because he's such a
Yeah.
douchebag in this movie, and you just want him to get some kind of comeuppance. And I love how Jameson is, like, so mad about having to print a retraction.
Yeah, he's like, we haven't had to print a retraction in 2 decades.
In 20 years, yeah. I think that's the most mad we see Jameson in these movies, too.
I think so, yeah.
Besides maybe when he's, like, shouting that, you know, I want Spider-Man! In the second movie. I gotta say, it's not good for his blood pressure. You know.
Yeah.
I think the climax is pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it's not bad.
The action scenes are pretty good, and, you know, seeing Spider-Man and the new Goblin team up, that was kind of cool to see. You know, before this movie, there haven't really been too many movies where, like, you got, like, superhero, like, team-ups and stuff, so, you know, it's... That would have been kind of new at the time. And it was kind of nice seeing, you know, Peter and Harry back on good terms again after they basically hated each other for most of the second movie.
Yeah, and, like, for most of this movie, too.
And to be fair to James Franco, he does kind of look like a goblin when his face is scarred.
A little bit.
And it is a memorable movie. Sometimes for the wrong
memorable.
reasons, but I mean, I remembered most of this movie, so granted, I did rewatch it like 2 years ago as well, so maybe that was why. That being said, I have a lot of cons with this one. This is gonna take a while to get.
There are some problems with this movie. Okay, can I get to my biggest con real quick? Because I want to see if it's like something you've thought about too.
It probably was because I had so many issues.
So my biggest problem with this is that it's too crowded with villains.
Yes,
Because you're juggling Sandman, Venom, and the New Goblin, and you're not developing any of them nearly enough.
No, it is overstuffed with like characters and plot lines too. Like,
Yeah.
there's too many plot lines going on at once. They should have cut either Sandman or cut Venom from the movie. That's what they should have done.
Yeah, no, I think you could have done New Goblin and Sandman and had it be fine.
Set up Venom with just have Eddie in this movie, and then he turns into Venom at the end of the movie. That would have been better.
Sort of like how they have Dr. Connors in these movies, but he doesn't become the Lizard right away.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, they could have done Spider-Man 4 with the Lizard and Venom or something, you know.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting. It's the same problem with Batman and Robin. There's just too many villains. And I don't even know which one's the main villain. Like, just
in this movie,
New Goblin, kind of. Well, no,
because Spider-Man 2
2
set up New Goblin as the main villain, but
he
gets like his ass kicked at the beginning of the movie, and then he's gone until like the last half of it.
And then Sandman is, I mean, he's a villain, but he's redeemable at least.
Yeah.
And then Venom doesn't even show up until the end.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that you mentioned, those plot lines, because it'll go through part of somebody's plot line and just drop the character.
You have
like
two
after the
movies
subway
worth of plot here. It's just
like for example, after the subway fight with Sandman, he's gone for I think at least an hour before he even shows up again. And he's just completely forgotten about until then. You don't set up Venom until like the last 40 minutes of the movie. And then New Goblin you get out of the way at the very beginning and then try and reintroduce him halfway through.
Sandman just feels kind of like superfluous in this. He doesn't really add much to the plot.
Not really.
Venom barely adds with it. Just make the New Goblin the main villain.
Yeah, like they were setting up with the second movie.
Yeah, it's just... There's a lot of... Oh, and not only that, but like Gwen Stacy is in this movie, and
yep,
she felt really out of place.
Because she's really only there for Peter to steal and then make MJ jealous. That is her only role.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't like just kill her off in this movie, like they do with her in other
with
places.
the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. Also, you do know about that, but that did happen.
That's
what happened in the comics. The New Goblin costume kind of sucks.
I agree.
He looks like a snowboarder. It's just bad.
It's just dumb.
I mentioned earlier I wasn't really a fan of the Uncle Ben twist because it was just kind of dumb and pointless to me. It felt lazy. Like, why weren't they told about this earlier? Because Uncle Ben gets shot in the first movie, and they don't find this out until the third movie.
Yeah. I can see that, but again, I like at least the idea of that plot point. I think it could have worked if they had found a way to introduce it a little more.
It could have been written better, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe if they took out, say, Venom and gave Sandman his own movie to be developed in, maybe it would have worked better.
That really is where like all the problems with this movie come from. It's just there's not enough time to like do any of these plot lines. It's a mess.
And it's not like a short movie either. It's still like
it's the longest of these three movies, if I remember right. Also, okay, so Sandman falls into, like, this, like, scientific, like, there's these scientists testing, like, I don't know, what are they testing? They're, like, testing, like,
It,
sand genetics or something? Like,
yeah,
what?
so it was supposed to be like a particle accelerator, even though that's not what they look like. And I don't know why they were doing it over a big sand pit. You kind of have to ignore the scientific mumbo jumbo they were throwing around there, because that's not what that would look like at all. But
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's a Spider-Man movie. I don't expect it to be, like, accurate. But what I find funny about that scene, Sandman just falls into that sand pit. The scientists, like, one of them notices, oh, it, like, weighs a little
Something
bit
in there.
differently.
Oh, it's probably a bird.
It's probably, one of them says it's probably a bird. It'll just fly away. There's no way he weighs the same as a. The only way he would weigh the same as a bird is if he was a witch, because then he'd weigh the same as a duck. But he's Sandman. Like, what?
I will say, even though that part's kind of dumb, I do actually like that scene overall. I think it's kind of horrifying.
Where he turns into Sandman. Yeah,
Fred's perspective.
It is pretty good, and the
And
special
actually,
effects are
there
pretty
is a
good, too.
video on YouTube where this guy, I think it's Jacob Geller, was talking about his favorite scenes in bad movies, and this is the one that he opened with.
Oh, really? Huh. I did like how they showed, like, Sandman's DNA and how it was, like, transforming into sand.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool, actually. Like, visually it looked pretty good.
Yeah. And again, Sandman's CGI was pretty good.
Another thing is the tone of this thing is all over the place.
Yes.
Because there's parts that are, like, really serious, and then there's parts that are, like, really cheesy and just stupid. Like, the first two movies were more consistent.
Yeah. This one's a bit psychotic with it, like, whipping back and forth.
This one just kind of crossed the line into, like, being too goofy during parts of it. And it also
a lot of it has to do with the Bully Maguire stuff taking place right in between some really serious scenes.
Because the scenes with Black Suit Spider-Man are actually kind of cool. Emo Peter Parker is not. So Bully Maguire, as he's also known, his hair looks ridiculous.
It's awful.
He looks like he's gonna go join My Chemical Romance or something. And it's especially baffling because Tobey Maguire's performance in the second movie, especially, was really good.
Yeah.
And here, he's fucking ridiculous. It's like, what happened between movies? Just... Like, at points it almost felt like Tobey Maguire was trying to imitate Patrick Bateman or something. Like, and I know a lot of people make fun of, like, how much he cries in these movies, and in the first two movies, I didn't think it was that much of a problem. And here in this one, it's just like, oh, come on, Peter. Like, just...
Yeah.
I think this one crossed way too much into melodrama at points.
Especially with a lot of the... Okay,
A lot of
this
the stuff
actually
with
leads
MJ.
into another complaint that I had.
The stuff with MJ and Peter was just, oh my god.
Yeah.
Like,
But this leads into another complaint that I have, which is Harry's plan when he wakes back up and remembers everything is really dumb.
I don't even remember what his plan was. Just kill Spider-Man?
His plan was to go threaten MJ so that she would go break up with Peter, so that he could go have lunch with Peter and be like, yeah, I'm dating MJ now, and make him jealous.
Oh my god. That scene where he talks to Peter in that, like, coffee shop, that was so dumb. Like, just...
And then Peter leaves, he turns around, the bus goes by, and then he's gone. It's so stupid.
He, like, vanishes, like, because apparently he's Batman now or something.
Yeah.
Or did he just, like, duck under the table or something?
I like to think that's what
But the other
happened
part of
now.
that scene
He
makes...
just ducked under the table.
The other part of that scene that's really funny to me is, like, the waitress comes by and asks him, how's the pie? And he says, it's so good. Just, what was that?
Do you think he was trying to act like Willem Dafoe?
I don't
that
know.
Scene? Do you think he was trying to act like the Goblin?
James Franco's performance in this was just, oh my god, it's so... Granted, part of it is his plotline is not handled well, because, okay,
No.
he wants revenge on Spider-Man and Peter Parker, because, you know, they're the same person. Then he gets clonked on the head and forgets everything.
And then forgets. It feels like such a lazy way to do that plot line.
And then he just suddenly remembers, just out of nowhere, because I guess Willem Dafoe came back to haunt him or something. To be fair, if your dad was Willem Dafoe, yeah, that would be kind of scary. At least the Green Goblin version. And then some guy that works for him just says, oh, your dad killed himself. And he's good again.
It's so bad.
Why did this dude wait so long to tell him this? It kind of reminded me of Kylo Ren's character arc. It was just all over the place and just not well written.
And again, I'm sure if he had his own movie, it would have been done better. But since he was just smashed in with everything else,
it also just didn't help that the acting in this was just so weird. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what happened to Tobey Maguire and James Franco across the movie, but it's... Oh, boy. And MJ... Oh, my God. MJ... Like, I thought she was kind of annoying in the second one, but in this one, oh, my goodness. Like...
Yeah.
The scenes with her and Peter in this are just like, oh, my God. You two just need to, like, grow up or something. One positive I did forget to mention, actually, I do like Bruce Campbell's cameo in this movie.
Yes. That was fun as the maitre d'.
He, like, comes up with this idea for, like, when Peter wants to propose to MJ, he's like, you should put, like, the ring at the bottom of a wine glass so that when she drinks it, like, I'm just like, just kind of a bad idea. What if she swallows it?
Exactly.
And they keep, like, almost coming out, like, at the wrong time.
At the wrong time.
Yeah.
One other positive that I liked, Aunt May doesn't get kidnapped in this movie. They moved on from that plot point.
That was another thing I was going to mention. Like, it seemed like Rosemary Harris had more screen time in this one than in the other ones. She has some good scenes, you know, with Peter in this. Yeah, she doesn't get kidnapped in this one. That's true, but you know who does?
MJ kidnapped a third. She was kidnapped twice in this movie. Once by Harry, and then once by Venom and Sandman.
Jesus Christ. I guess the life of a Broadway actress isn't all it's cracked up to be. Oh wait, she's not a Broadway actress. She gets fired from the show for some reason, even though her performance wasn't even bad either. Granted, we didn't see her acting in this one, but like her singing wasn't bad.
Yeah.
At least I didn't think it was. Oh my god, that scene where MJ and Harry do the twist while making food.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that scene.
That was so stupid. That was another scene I was just laughing at how dumb and out of place it was. Like, that was another thing that they're setting up in these movies is like the whole love triangle between Peter, MJ, and Harry. And in this one, it was just dumb.
It felt like retreading the first two movies.
there were some scenes which were just between them that I was like laughing at just how bad it was. Like,
Yeah.
because in the first two movies, it never crossed over into like soap opera territory, whereas here it's just like, oh my goodness. And all this time, it takes way too long for Spider-Man to get the black suit in this one. Or it felt like it, at least.
Because they introduced Venom at, like, pretty early on in the movie, but then he doesn't get the suit until...
Well, Eddie, at least.
Yeah.
Because there's the symbiote's just hanging out in Peter Parker's apartment for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's doing. Is it like attaching itself to like a mouse or something and going crazy? And yeah, just like the plot is all over the place. Okay, so what they should have done, they should have just had the new Goblin as the main villain. Then at the end, Spider-Man like injures him with one of his bombs. Like Harry's badly wounded, not dead, but almost. Like,
yeah,
or he's only mostly dead. You know, he's not all dead. And then in Spider-Man 4, they could have brought him back and then tried to gradually bring him like back as a good guy. Yeah, instead of just having him turn back into a good guy at the end after getting amnesia. And then him and Spider-Man fight Venom. You know, like, set up Venom for the 4th movie. Don't just shoehorn him into this one.
Yeah.
Oh, did we talk about we need to talk about Venom.
Yeah, just what a waste of such an amazing villain.
And again, it made me appreciate the Venom movies more, because those movies, they're not great, but I mean, Tom Hardy...
But they're fun, at least, and Venom's cool.
Tom Hardy's a much better casting choice for Venom than Topher Grace. Because Topher Grace just... He's just a douche. He's just... And not in, like...
He's a very one-dimensional character. He never learns or grows. He's just there
a kiss
to, like you said, be a
Jameson,
douche.
basically.
And then he gets Venom, and like nothing changes except he's strong now.
Yeah, like just, and he's not really given an interesting motivation for wanting to go after Spider-Man.
Yeah,
it's just he got exposed for faking some pictures and lost his job. Like, okay,
and then goes to pray that God's going to kill Peter right after.
I want you to kill Peter Parker. Oh my goodness. And like, you imagine Venom to be like this really big, like, imposing dude, and Topher Grace, like, nothing against him, but he's not a very imposing looking dude.
No.
Peter Parker could beat him up in his sleep. I mean, and what makes a lot of sense behind the scenes is, while you're watching this movie, Sam Raimi was forced to put Venom in the movie.
Yeah.
Originally, he wanted Vulture, but the executives basically just said, "Oh, Venom's popular, put him in there."
Yeah.
So the movie's just not given any room to breathe. It's just, oh my god. But like, and also Eddie Brock, like, he's a lot of things, but douchey photographer, I mean, okay.
Yeah, again, they boiled him down too much, and he's just entirely just one-dimensional and just not interesting.
Also, Harry somehow survives a pumpkin bomb that was, like, directly in his face.
Yeah. It just burns the side of his face and doesn't do anything else to him.
Yeah. He starts to look kind of like a goblin, I guess. But yeah, just the writing. I know I keep saying that, but like the writing is just a mess. Like you
Yeah.
can say what you want about Superman 3, but it felt more consistent than this movie,
Yeah.
at least tone wise. It was still weird to go, oh yeah, let's make a Superman movie, but then let's also have Richard Pryor's bumbling antics in it as well. That's what this movie needed. It needed a famous comedian just like tripping over and getting like freaked out by shit. Like
Yeah.
just throw Louis C.K. in there or something. I don't know. Or like Ben Stiller. Just get Ben Stiller
Yeah.
in this movie. Oh boy. Because the tone in this movie is so weird. Because on one hand, it wants to be dark and serious, but then it's got these scenes where it's trying to be really campy and ridiculous. So wait, does that make this the most Sam Raimi out of the 3 Spider-Man movies, tone-wise?
It's like if Sam Raimi was slightly unhinged and didn't care about making it cohesive like at all.
I guess, yeah. There's the really weird scene where the butler tells Harry his father was killed by his own glider, which that comes out of nowhere. Why did he wait this long to tell him?
Yeah, to be like, your father died by his own hand.
I don't know if you've seen the bloopers for this scene, but they're really funny.
Yeah.
At one point, he says Gilder instead of glider. Which makes me think of the Princess Bride, you know. Who's Gilder? The country across the sea, the sworn enemy of Florin. And then at another point, he says that Norman was killed by his own trailer. I wish they'd left that line in the movie. What a twist! He was killed by his trailer.
by his own trailer.
Oh my god. Another thing worth pointing out, Sam Raimi himself thought that the movie was awful. And he made it, so I mean...
Yeah.
And this also felt like Sam Raimi's like style wasn't as like...
No, there was like one scene when Black Suit Spider-Man is ripping like a pipe open to try and drown Sandman, basically, where it had sort of quick cuts that looked a bit Sam Raimi-ish, but other than that, it didn't really look like a Raimi film.
Yeah, I don't know what happened here. Again, I've heard there was like studio interference, so that might explain some of it. You know.
I was also about to say, it feels a lot more like an MCU film than the first 2 Spider-Man movies do.
Yeah, it feels more like, I don't know why, but it feels more like Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, a little bit.
Although that one had a little bit more of the unhinged Sam Raimi
to it.
Is this a better or worse movie than that? Is what I'm gonna ask.
I'm going to have to rewatch Multiverse of Madness because I haven't seen it since it was in theaters.
So that one at least felt a little bit more like Sam Raimi was given some like freedom to like play around in the MCU sandbox, whereas here it just feels a little constrained. But another thing I realized while watching this is I forgot what scene happens after Harry dies. I literally forgot the ending of this movie.
Oh yeah. I think I kind of did too.
There's like a funeral, then MJ sings that Marilyn Monroe song.
Yeah, at the jazz club,
and she hugs Peter. For some reason, I never remember that ending. I don't know why, but it's such a dour ending, too. Like, this movie does not end on a happy note.
Yeah, no, it's kind of sad because Harry dies. I guess you get a sort of bittersweet thing with Spider-Man and Sandman.
Don't you mean Mr. Sandman?
Yes, with Mr. Sandman.
Is he lost in Never Neverland? And it was never resolved either.
Think of a good way to shoe in the Sandman song by The American, or America, whatever that band is.
America, yeah. Are we gonna mention the Neil Gaiman story, The Sandman, or whatever?
There's too many Sandman references to make. I understand that Spider-Man's been running from the man that goes by the name of the Sandman. It's too many mans. I'm giving up this bit. It's not working.
Another thing, this movie cost us a Spider-Man 4.
It did, which is really sad.
If this movie had been better, we might have gotten a Spider-Man 4. And I remember hearing about that a lot, like at the time, that they're going to make a Spider-Man 4, but it never got made. I think Black Cat was supposed to be in it, or Vulture.
Yeah, I heard Vulture
Dr. Connors was going to turn into the Lizard.
Yeah.
And we did eventually get some of that, so, there's that.
And then I heard that Bruce Campbell's cameo was supposed to be as Mysterio in Spider-Man 4, which would have been awesome.
One thing that's interesting, Venom's death was originally a lot darker.
Yes, I've actually seen the thing about that.
Peter tries pulling Eddie out of the symbiote, and he's just a skeleton. So it's kind of left up to interpretation whether Eddie was just dead the whole time when it sucked the life out of him or something. It's pretty messed up.
Or if it was just the symbiote over his bones, and that there was no Eddie Brock anymore.
Yeah. So I mentioned in the first Spider-Man podcast that I was going to tell a story that kind of involves this movie. So this would have been the first day of 3rd grade. And the first day of 3rd grade, I decided to wear one of my favorite shirts. I had the shirt with Spider-Man and Sandman on it from Spider-Man 3. And I was really sick that day, so I ended up throwing up all over that shirt and my desk on the first day of 3rd grade. So in a way, this movie kind of made me throw up, I guess. So there's that.
So it's another film that made one of us sick.
Yeah, you mentioned you had allergies or something.
Yeah, no, I've been dying of allergies for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. And I don't know if I ever wore that shirt again, actually, just because of that experience.
Yeah.
Jesus. It was the first day of 3rd grade. Just not a good way to start off. But my biggest con with this movie, though, and you're definitely gonna agree with me on this, they didn't have a fight scene between Sandman and Anakin.
That's what would have really tied this movie together, I think, was Anakin Skywalker versus Flint Marko. It's really what we needed.
Oh, that's what his name was. The whole time we were just calling him Sandman, but I forgot what his character's name was besides that. But yeah, Flint Marko.
My phone kept auto-correcting my notes to say Clint instead of Flint.
Clint Marko.
So I'm surprised I got it right.
That's his multiverse.
His multiverse. Clint Narco. He's a cop.
That'll be like when they do the next Spider-Verse movie, they're gonna have Clint Marco in it or something. And he's like a cop, but he's a really dirty cop, so it's kind of a contrast to Sandman. It was like, Sandman, he's breaking the law, but for a good reason. And then Clint Marco is... he's following the law, but for the wrong reasons. I don't know what those wrong reasons are, but we'll find out in the next Spider-Verse movie.
Exactly.
But yeah, at the very least, they should have given Hayden Christensen a cameo in this. I mean,
Yeah.
just a scene where he could just say that he hates sand.
Like,
maybe he's like
a New York City pedestrian. He sees Sandman for like the third time breaking into a bank. He's just like, I hate the Sandman. He's rough, he's coarse, and he gets everywhere.
Maybe have Natalie Portman there with him too. Oh my god.
Oh, we can't because she's off with Thor at about this time. I guess it's probably a couple years down
This is
the line,
before.
actually.
This is before the Thor movie.
Yeah. I didn't realize it. I thought Thor was earlier than 2011. I thought it was like
The first
2009.
MCU movie didn't come out until 2008.
I thought they were quick with them, and so I thought Thor was 09 and like Iron Man was like 08.
But yeah, I just have Anakin and Padme just sitting and eating pears, and then Sandman shows up or something. Okay, so overall thoughts.
Real quick, I have one piece of trivia that I would like to share before we get into overall thoughts.
Oh boy.
There was a Spider-Man 3 video game where most of the cast reprised their roles from the movie into here, but they also added in a lot of other Spider-Man villains.
That's something
into the
I've
story.
heard about, is some of these Spider-Man games don't follow the movies.
Yeah, so for instance,
One of my
Dr.
friends-
Connors... Yeah.
One of my friends was telling me about the a Spider-Man 2 game, and apparently Mysterio was in it, and I'm like, okay, that's not right.
Well, in this one, Dr. Connors does turn into the Lizard. And we also get appearances from the Rhino. We get Kraven the Hunter, Calypso, Kingpin. And even Dr. Morbius himself shows up in the game.
The greatest character of all time. Is he played by Jared Leto?
Sadly, no. I'll have to look up who plays him.
So they got all the cast from so they have Tobey Maguire and like...
Yeah, just about all of them. Even James Franco.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Sean Donnellan. Let's see who else Sean Donnellan has played.
Do you get to dance across the street while listening to a James Brown song?
I don't know. I haven't played this myself, but I really hope you do.
You get like points from it or something. Oh god, that would be so stupid. Oh, is Jameson in it? J.K. Simmons, is he in it?
Yeah. But yeah, that was just my fun little trivia. Real quick, is that Morbius has a Spider-Man 3 connection.
Did you know that the guy that played Sandman in this was method acting? He actually turned himself into sand so that he could... Okay, anyway.
He actually gave his daughter cancer so he could know how Sandman felt.
Did he use like Harley Quinn's cancer ray on his daughter or something?
Yes.
I've never seen that show, but that clip, I have watched that clip so many times because it's so funny. It's like, who would make a cancer ray? Okay. Anyway. So, overall thoughts.
So, for me, like I mentioned before, this movie has a lot of problems. A lot of it's just due to cramming in too many storylines and too many villains into a single movie. It suffers from that. It suffers from writing, from weird tone shifts throughout the movie. But despite all that, it is kind of entertaining to watch. Even some of like the worst parts of the movie, like with Tobey Maguire, you can at least laugh at those parts.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
Exactly. It's just they're so
It is very
weird and
quotable.
dumb, but you can have fun. It is insanely quotable, sort of like the Star Wars prequels in a way.
Yeah.
And like I said, the music's pretty good. The CGI is shockingly good. There's a couple scenes where it doesn't hold up as well, but overall, it's not terrible.
Yeah,
I'd say that it's definitely the worst of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films, but
definitely.
better than some of the other Spider-Mans that were made after this one, I would say.
Are you gonna name them or just leave that up to...
No, we're gonna leave that up just in case we decide to cover those at some point as well.
Okay, so despite all these issues, you do enjoy this movie. Okay.
I do enjoy this movie.
Okay, so this movie is very frustrating for me. The action is pretty good. The special effects are good. And there's some good scenes here and there, but the plot is just, it's all over the place. Mainly because this movie's just, it's trying to do too much at once. It's trying to shove 15 pounds of shit into a 5-pound bag. It's just, oh my goodness. This is why you don't have more than one villain per movie.
Yeah. At most 2, and you have to carefully plan if you have 2.
Because we mentioned this is kind of a like, we were criticizing the Batman sequels for this. Yeah, even Batman Returns, which I enjoyed that movie, but like there were too many villains in it. There were too many villains in it. But the worst example was probably Batman and Robin. Like, just, oh my god. Like, because they got Mr. Freeze, they got Poison Ivy, they got Bane.
And they ruin him.
The worst depiction of Bane that I've ever seen. And yeah, this one, it's just... Nowadays, this movie is mostly enjoyable because of the unintentionally hilarious scenes.
Yeah.
Because, like we mentioned, whenever Peter Parker's, like, acting emo, it's kind of this thing where you're just like, it's so cringy, but it kind of comes around to being, like, unintentionally
funny
hilarious.
As a result.
Like,
yeah.
Because it's just like, you're like, why was... Who thought that was a good idea? And like some of the scenes with MJ and Peter, I was just like laughing, like just because it was just bad. But there's something about this movie. It's kind of like quaint now because we've had worse superhero sequels than this.
Yeah.
Because back when this was made,
a lot worse superhero sequels.
Something I was thinking about earlier today is when this was made, there weren't that many bad superhero sequels. There were plenty of bad superhero movies, but bad superhero sequels, there weren't that many, because Superman 4 existed. And then, of course, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin also existed. But, like, there weren't that many that, like, just had that really good setup with, like, the plotline stuff from the previous movies, and then failed to live up to it. Whereas now, like, there have been tons of,
that's like half the Superman, or the superhero sequels now.
Yeah. It's kind of funny to think there was a time when this was the worst, like, theatrical Spider-Man movie. Because, I mean, this movie, it's pretty stupid, but I do find it hard to hate it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like it, but I don't hate it, just because it does have its moments where it's just so dumb that it becomes funny to me. And I do watch it every now and again, because, I mean, it is a Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, so, it's kind of the same with, like, Phantom Menace. I'm not really a huge fan of that movie, but I'll put it on, because, I mean, it is one of the... it is a Star Wars movie back before... Well, I'm not going to get into that. And I mean, hey, we've done worse third installments than this on the podcast. This was easier to sit through than, like, Alien 3 or...
That is very fair.
Batman Forever. Like, it was more enjoyable than Deep Blue Sea 3.
That was not too hard to be better than, I feel.
That's true, yeah. I liked it more than Die Hard with a Vengeance. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You would kill me if I was being serious about that. It was more enjoyable than Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, honestly.
Yeah. Better than Rise of Skywalker.
If you count that as a third movie, I guess.
It's the third movie in a trilogy.
It's never gonna beat Rambo 3, though. That's the best third movie.
I'm sorry, you're forgetting From Dusk Till Dawn 3, the actual best third movie ever made.
How could I forget From Dusk Till Dawn 3? Oh my god, I barely remember that movie. Like, I just remember Ambrose Bierce is in it, and Tamora Morrison shows up. You might kill me for saying this, but I think I might enjoy this more than Halloween 3.
Really?
Neither of them are very good, but Spider-Man 3 I found more funny than Halloween 3.
I can see that, actually. That's not, like, the worst thing. I can see that.
Halloween 3 doesn't have Tobey Maguire in it. So...
That's true.
Halloween 3 does... Well, okay, the villain... Dan O'Hurley's performance is pretty good, but his plot doesn't make any sense. So... It'd be kind of interesting to see him as a Spider-Man villain. But yeah. Oh, and speaking of Halloween, Halloween 2 has the song Mr. Sandman in it, and this movie has Mr. Sandman in it. Yep. Okay, so... what was... Okay, alright. Oh yeah, is this better or worse than Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness?
I'm gonna have to rewatch that movie and see.
Because, I mean, that movie wasn't great either. But it had more Sam Raimi moments in it.
Yeah, no, it had a few parts in there where you could definitely feel Sam was behind the camera.
Like, there were parts of it that just felt like an Evil Dead movie or something.
Yeah. Like when Black Widow's attacking the temple.
Oh my god. Okay, that's another thing about this movie. Okay, so the Evil Dead movies are about, like, demons possessing people and making them act weird. Sam Raimi should have been a perfect choice for this movie. Because the black suit, it's kind of like they're possessed or something, and they're acting weird. This could have been, like, a much darker, weirder movie, but no, instead we got...
Or even with Venom, you could do, like, a whole, almost, like, Spider-Man horror film with Venom.
Well, they kind of did that with... We might have to review the Venom movies at some point.
I would be okay doing the Venom movies. That would actually be kind of fun.
There's a third one coming out this year. So.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the last one, I think.
Oh man, there's a trilogy.
Remember when you remember how Venom and Eddie show up in the MCU for like 5 minutes before getting sent back?
Oh my goodness, was that in that was in No Way Home, right?
Yeah. Well, because at the end of Venom 2, he gets sent over to the MCU world, and at the end of No Way Home, he's just teleported right back.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add, or?
No, I do not.
Let's wrap this up. Okay, so our next podcast is unbelievably another superhero movie. Oh, it's animated.
It is.
We haven't. Have we done any animated superhero movies yet?
I don't think so.
Does Mario count? Does Hercules and Xena count?
Hercules and Xena does not count.
Okay. I thought so. But yeah, so our next podcast is Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Now this one, I'm curious to revisit because I haven't seen it in a while.
Hmm.
A lot of people really like it, too. Like, there's some people who are like, oh, this is one of the best Batman movies.
But until then, roll the Andy Griffith.
Yeah. See ya, chump.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.